Salutations, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to another edition of Factions of Freedom. I'm your host, Noiser, Freedom Faction, whichever one you prefer, and I have titled this episode, The Globalist Awakening, Sustainable Lifestyles, and Minds of the Reprobates. Why? Because I have been getting back to my truth-seeking roots, and let me tell you, these next few episodes, or even going into the next season, are going to be something super powerful. That's right, I'm not slowing down. If anything, I'm doubling down. I'm committing to you guys. I hope you commit to me. Download these show notes, follow along with the episode, and understand the amount of work that we are putting into things to try to bring you guys quality content. As we're wrapping up the season, I want you guys to understand that this does not mean that we're slowing down. It means we're securing our place in the future. You may have noticed that we're coming up with monthly and weekly specials for our new Shopify items, as well as all the tiers and benefits that come with becoming an exclusive member. Lastly, for our season finale, I'm letting you good people choose whether or not you'd like to do it over Instagram Live or over the radio, the live stream that we're going to be doing. So pay attention to that. It's literally a week away. I'm going to be posting about it, and I really hope to hear your guys' responses on things. The last little update for you guys, and I keep saying this because it's really important. On the Wake Up Radio is ranked 335 on Apple Podcast Education. That's right, we're kicking tail and setting the standard, raising the bar. Whole lot of things to discuss in this episode. Things like the Yellow Vest protests that are taking place worldwide and what's going to happen here in America. What this means for the future as people wake up about globalism and more. The satanic ritual abuse, things like spirit cooking, pedogate, pizzagate, stopping human trafficking, and so much more. My friends, this is a classic episode. With that being said, let's start the show. Salutations, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to another edition of Factions of Freedom. Now, yeah, that's right. It's the end of the year. We're wrapping things up. That's very strange because, I don't really know how to shut up. But I want to spend the first intro, the first part of this show, talking about a few things. The overwhelming amount of support that we've had, pulling off the operation, the guests that we've had, like the content that we're doing. Wow. I cannot thank you guys enough. This is definitely an honor to be in this position. And I know I talk about it, but I don't talk about it enough. And there's really no way for me to talk about it enough. Now, this is why I'm trying to step out more in front of the camera, as you guys will see with the coming season and the transitions, the growth that we have queued up for you guys. I sometimes look at everything that we're doing, and I'm in this state of kind of like awe, like, wow, this is a lot, but at the same time, it's not enough. And I suppose what I'm really trying to say is, earlier today, when I was on the hike, I just kept seeing the glory that is reality, the glory that is just existence, man. I'm just so in awe of everything that really is taking place. This is history in the making, and there's really no way it's indescribable to talk about the amazing feeling. And so I get up here, we do the political stuff, we cover the news, we talk about what's going on, the breaking developments, this, that, and the third. But it's the deeper level behind that. You see, it's that essence of change, it's that essence of power that really gets us to this point. Information is important, it's key, it's quintessential, but it's not all that there is. We've talked about this before. Information and data are the terms that computers use to communicate. Humans use knowledge and wisdom, and all of these things are, in the same spectrum of thought. That the archetype, the concept of thought, and this is why communicating with people is so important, so key, so essential. Every single person you walk by is a whole different adventure, a whole different book, a whole different understanding of this crazy world that we find ourselves in. And that's why when we're confronted with everything that we see, that's why I'm fighting all this conformity, all this automation, all this technological takeover. There is no formula for life. We cannot submit to this. That's why, again, the NPC meme is so important. I'm fighting for you. I'm fighting for freedom. I'm fighting for individuality. I'm fighting for the next generation. I'm fighting for just something bigger than myself. And even whenever you look past what you're fighting, what you think of as big, right? You're just part of a microcosm. What you think of as big is smaller in comparison to everything else. Oh, man. I'll say this and then we'll jump into the show. Over the weekend, I watched a lot of biblical prophecy documentaries, getting into biblical eschatology, archaeology. Man, I loved it. And we need to get back to those types of roots. I definitely want to try to, prepare these types of shows for you guys, because I feel like I'm delivering the information, but there's got to be the knowledge and the wisdom aspect behind it. I have to help inform and empower, enrich every single person's life, and that's what we're here to do. And I may not have the answers. I know I don't. But we're here to figure them out. This life is a test, and we are given the blessing of life, and that's why you can't have these people distort it. They want to control reality. They want to control everything unilaterally, and this is why I tell you, stay vigilant, remain vigilant, or remain rebellious or defiant. I don't know. We'll come up with a newer phrase, because it's important that people are aware of all these tactics. And so I think it's a good way, or at least a good point for us to start into the show. Now, we've had a whole lot of things happen. Apparently, the Belgian Prime Minister resigned. He's going to the king there. We'll start talking about the yellow vest stuff, and then we'll get into, and we didn't talk about this a whole lot in the previous episode, Congressman Ted Lieu wanting to regulate speech on, and basically the whole technocracy that we see evolving. You see, it's like they can see the technocracy that's being built. They're reading things about Agenda 21, Agenda 2030. What's even strange, if you guys, for people who have streaming media, check out Hulu. I'm going to be watching this shortly. Apparently, there's a documentary on there about Agenda 21 and how they're trying to exterminate us. So all these things are important. But what we're seeing happen here in America, or at least here around the world, in our time frame, I don't even want to say it's America, we're seeing people wake up. We're seeing people fight back against a tyrannical system that is trying to figure out ways to creep its hands into our pockets. Now, last week I asked this question: should America have its own yellow vest style protests? And I asked you good people what you guys would be protesting. Now, before I go into this, let me go ahead and get this on record that within that time frame, within the week of asking that question, people across America actually have come together. They have actually organized their own yellow vest protests in New York City, in Denver, in Mississippi, California, Minnesota, all of these places. And I'll put the link for that in the description bar below, because there's one this Saturday, which is great, December 22nd. And there are also going to be more, I think they have a post for it here. There's also going to be more over time, you see. So I'm very excited about this. Like I said, check it out if you guys are interested. They have all kinds of things to bring. What I'm trying to make sure people are aware of right off the bat is that we get our facts straight. Okay. Now, we don't have a whole lot of people talking about what will be protested at the yellow vest style protests. And this is, again, a question I want to put out there to you, the audience, about what you guys think is important. I talk about things such as surveillance capitalism, the police state, Common Core, what they consider new math in academia, corporate environmental disasters, things like the Dakota Access Pipeline and the Bayou Bridge, chemtrails that are now being discussed as stratospheric aerosol injections. We'll get into that for sure. The contents of what's in the vaccines, GMOs, and so much more. Over 1,000 people have liked this post, and I have yet to get to the very bottom of how many different comments there are. People are very well aware. A lot of you, I would suggest that you guys check it out, because people are aware. They want to end the Fed, stop giving our tax money away to foreign entities like Israel, end the pedophilia rings, no more income tax, no 5G. No room for mandatory privacy zones, no more big pharma, Monsanto. Our audience is very well aware of the injustices that America faces, as well as the world. And this is why it's good that we have people actually coming together to organize these types of things. I don't know if we'll have time to get into it, but there is a GoFundMe that has been started by Americans, I think earlier this week, and it's already reached like $4 million. And this is funding that they want to try to build the wall. This could be the future of government. This could be the future of how populism, what they consider democracy, all of this stuff, how the future of government should be. People having the power and putting their energy towards what they want. Now, mob rule is a whole different discussion, and I'm pretty sure all of that will get discussed as we see more of this develop. But ultimately, what I'm trying to tell you guys is revolution is contagious. I said this in the previous episode. Can you smell that? Can you smell that revolution in the air? Can you smell it? It's everywhere. And everyone wants it. Why? Because we're tired of the same system that has indentured us. We're tired of being slaves to a monotheistic culture. You see, I said this before in the previous episode, we're going into things such as regionalism, right? Globalism, but in your certain sector. And maybe I need to spend the time to actually correlate things like Agenda 21, the FEMA districts, and things like the Hunger Games, and how their whole plan in the future is to have certain sections, certain regions that are responsible for certain things. So it's very important. All these things are important. And this is great. This is really great. Part of me does think, though, that there is a underlying tone for why we see what I would consider a retreat from all the global elites, but that's another discussion for another day. I'm going to play for you guys a quick clip of the Belgian Prime Minister telling Parliament that he will resign because this is a victory for the yellow vests. We haven't heard a word from Macron. He's basically been declared a traitor, guilty of high treason by his own military for these types of things. But let me go ahead and play you guys this clip from France 24.
What happened today is Charles Michel fell victim of a motion of no confidence vote that was tabled by the four leftist parties in the Chamber of Representatives, as it is called in Belgium. That is the Greens and the Socialists, both on the Flemish on the one side. He had proposed them to support his minority government until the coming elections. The general elections are supposed to take place at the same time as the European elections by the end of May, and he proposed those parties to help his government take care of affairs until this date, and they just basically said no. So he said he was going to tender his resignation, and he was going to go to the palace in order to tender it officially in front of the king. What happened today?
Monumental. And again, we see this wave of yellow vest, ground-based grassroots activism. We see this going everywhere. It's in Spain, it's in Italy, it's in America, it's in Europe, it's everywhere. Now, this is really major stuff. So to have the Prime Minister of Belgium, Charles Michel, saying he's going to resign, that's massive. And it's all because people are aware of this UN migration pact. So to a degree, and I want to go ahead and get this on record as well. You guys may have heard me discuss this with people in our Instagram story and privately with you guys. Some of this might be controlled because of how fast it is spreading. I think this is just good to kind of get on record just in case. Some of this might be controlled. This is why you have outside agitators that always come in to instigate and mess things up. Let me see if I can play for you guys the clip of the Yellow Vest protests in Belgium and how, again, they're responding to what's happening. But right here, this is where Belgian police are gassing citizens, and there's been a complete media blackout. That's actually been happening too. They say that some of the responses that they're going to have for the French Yellow Vest protesters is just that chemical warfare to try to pacify the population because they don't want people rising up. Okay, unity, unity is something that disorder, the global disorder, cannot have. This is why if we come together over ideas, over goals, over achievements, over results, there's nothing that can stop us. But here we have the Yellow Vest protests in Belgium.
European institution buildings surrounded with tear gas and water cannons meant to disperse thousands of protesters. These mostly Flemish activists are opposed to the Marrakesh Pact on Migration. The UN-sponsored text, backed by the EU, aims to smoothen migration movements. Although the pact is not legally binding, they say it sets a precedent and could be integrated into future policies.
Voor het eerst, de stem laten horen. We want our voice to be heard at last over this migration pact. This hasn't happened yet. It's apparently been approved. But the opinion of the people was never asked. That's strange, for something that goes this far.
Initially, their march was banned. When Belgium's High Court reversed the ban, authorizing a peaceful protest, authorities reportedly tried to block them, and that's when violence broke out. European institution built.
Of course, respect existence or expect resistance. Now, I think there's something that I'm going to use there to kind of pivot into our next talking point. The UN Migration Pact, that you see a lot of people who are aware of the Yellow Vest movement. I'm not sure if people here in America are and will protest about this, but the UN Migration Pact, the idea behind this was so that you would be considered doing or engaging in hate speech if you criticize migrants. And that's just one aspect of it. So it's a multi-pronged attack. They're trying to make it where migration anywhere can be legal, to where there's no borders, no walls, no countries at all. And at the same time, if you condemn or you criticize or you even talk about the concept of migration and people who are migrants, they want to consider that a hate speech violation. So then your social credit score, your whole identity just gets wrapped up into this thing that you're committing hate speech simply because you're trying to point this type of stuff out. Now, I think that's kind of crazy, but at the same time, we're living in a time frame to where you now have American congressmen who are saying, I would love to regulate free speech, but the First Amendment prevents me from doing so. Now, before I play for you guys this clip of Congressman Ted Lieu talking about just that, wanting to regulate speech, realize that Google has moved to China. And we talked about this briefly in our previous episode, okay? So now we have a whole different system, right? This is the difference between control and just freedom. And you have America that's building this thing for just expansion, growth, and just looking for more. Now we're talking about things like regulation, censorship, legislation, control, manipulation. We have all of these other things that are muddying the waters because you can't really put a funnel, or you can't really filter or control free will. And that's what the whole, if you ask me, I think that's what the internet was supposed to do over here underneath Western control. It was supposed to promote ideas, freedom of speech, renaissance. Hey, what are you building over there? I don't know. Get a Shopify or get an Etsy account and show me. Hey, what are you drawing over there? I don't know. Get a photo bucket or get a DeviantArt and draw it. This is what we were supposed to be experiencing going into the 21st century. Now we're talking about just that. Censorship, regulation. And this is because the godlike power that is Google and Apple has been transferred to the communists, to the very same people who see power in control. But let me play for you guys this clip of Congressman Ted Lieu talking about regulating speech, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, I want to ask you about something totally separate, because you were in this Google hearing. The CEO of Google, Sundar Pichai, testifying before your committee about a number of concerns. You took an opportunity to push back on Republican claims of bias in Google searches. In the middle of this hearing, you Googled Republican Steve Scalise. You Googled, after that, Republican Steve King, to show that there were favorable stories, including from conservative outlets, about Scalise, negative coverage of King, and you made the point, essentially, that's not because of a Google algorithm, it's because of what these members do and say. I will say it was clever, it caught some attention, but I wonder, have you thought that maybe you and other Democrats have missed opportunities to use your time to press Google's CEO at a time when these large tech companies are struggling to manage content, perpetuating conspiracy theories. They're so vulnerable to outside interference. Isn't that a focus that could have been a missed opportunity?
So it's a very good point you make. I would love if I could have more than 5 minutes to question witnesses. Unfortunately, I don't get that opportunity. However, I would love to be able to regulate the content of speech. The First Amendment prevents me from doing so. And that's simply a function of the First Amendment. But I think over the long run, it's better that government does not regulate the content of speech. I would urge these private sector companies to regulate it better themselves, but it's really nothing that I believe government can do, and so that's been my position all along.
All right, Governor, pardon me, Congressman, I promoted you, as you see. Congressman Ted Lieu from California, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyway, so there you have it. These are for people who are curious, that was actually done on CNN. So these people are letting you know what they think. They want to go ahead and regulate your speech. They want to regulate the content of your speech. How about that? Is that a little bit more accurate? They want to regulate the content of your speech, not what you say, but how you say it. This is political correctness. Okay? This is 1984 thought control. This is all kinds of different stuff. This is what we're ending the year with and going to start 2019 with. So it's past net neutrality. It's past all these other things. What happens whenever they try to retroactively come after you for things that you have said? Now, a whole lot of stuff that's going to go up with that, and I think it's important to highlight that people are waking up to the closing grip, and that's what I mean by the globalist awakening. They're going for broke. They're putting it all out there, and so we're seeing so many different people and so many different things. So we have to react. We're waking up. Basically, we're coming back to life. They said the sleeping giant is awakening because we can see, like I said, the grip that is coming now. Because they are aware of these types of things, and I've spoken on this time and time again, how technology has to counterfeit creation. Facebook is now having a patent to calculate your future location. And we put this up last week, but I think it's important to talk about this because this all pertains to what we see happening. This is why prior to this is the technocracy. This is why they want to have so many things involved in the surveillance state, the Internet of Things. They want to have you tapped in all the time. Information's coming out right now, and I'm sure everybody already knew this. But even if you log out from Facebook, they're still tracking you. Okay, and because I'm doing all kinds of different things in my area, I'll just give you guys a perfect example. It takes me 7 minutes to get to my house to the gym. Then it takes me 20 minutes to get to the foothills where I go run. How do I know this? Well, not because I only time myself, but also because Google tracks me. Okay, Google lets me know. It sends me a little notification every morning saying, "Hey, it takes 7 minutes to get to Planet Fitness. It takes 20 minutes to get to the foothills." And now Facebook has a patent to where they want to calculate your next step. For people who are curious as to what that means or what all of that really means, that's 1984. That's the Minority Report. That's the social credit score on steroids. This is beyond 1984. In previous editions of the show, we've talked about things like Google's selfish ledger. Now, let me go ahead and pull this article down because I don't have the selfish ledger up, or I might have it in our Instagram story. But in the Google story or the Google selfish ledger, their idea is to give us these phones, give us these devices, things that we already have. We'll supply as much information as we can. Our favorite likes, our favorite movies, our favorite type of music, color, all of these different types of things. Political interests, creative interests, animes, mangas, all this stuff. Movies, all of it. Hunting, survival, guns, all of everything that you could literally put into that little black box, right? And then once you've exhausted yourself digitally, the Google Selfish Ledger AI would reach into the digital ether and pull out more because it calculated what you might like. And so it has all these different algorithms, that go into it. It's crazy stuff. Definitely take the time to go check it out. But how does that pertain to what we're seeing now? Well, they want to let you know that they're going to start predicting your moves. This is where pre-crime comes in. This is where predictive policing, predictive programming, predictive analysis, all of this stuff comes in. But let me get into this article. It's by Nicole Nguyen of Technocracy News. We put this up December 12th. It says Facebook's new patent to calculate your future location. Facebook is entering the predictive analysis field by figuring out where you will go next, or where you will be at a certain time of day. This data is deemed necessary for social engineering, a la Technocracy. The method described is in3 Facebook patent application uses your historical location data and others to figure out where you will go. Facebook has filed several patent applications with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office for technology that uses your location data to predict where you're going to be and when you're going to be offline. That's another key point right there. Predictive analysis, pattern recognition. It's not so much, and this is the crazy part about where we're at now. It's not even about if you're online. They have algorithms because we've given the beast so much information, they have the algorithms to calculate what you'll do offline, as you see right here. But continuing on, the article says, in a statement, Facebook spokesperson Anthony Harrison said, quote, "We often seek patents for technology we never implement, and patent applications such as this one should not be taken as an indication of future plans. While a patent application doesn't necessarily mean that Facebook plans to implement the technology, it does show the company's interest in tracking and predicting your locations, an important tool for helping it serve you more effective ads." Of course, a May 30th, 2017 Facebook application titled, quote, "Offline Trajectories" describes a method to predict where you'll go based on your location data. The technology described in the patent will calculate a, quote, "transition probability based at least in part on previously logged location data associated with a plurality of users who are at the current location." In other words, the technology could also use the data of other people you know, as well as that of strangers, to make the predictions. If the company could predict where you are and where you're about to be in offline areas, Facebook content, quote, "may be prefetched so that the user may have access to content during the period where there is a lack of connectivity." So basically they're trying to say, we want to keep you online and we want to know what happens if you're offline. And we're going to use other people's data, that's when your friends become the cameras, to see what you're doing, to know what you're doing. That's some crazy stuff right there. What's even crazier is, you guys remember the Cambridge Analytica scandal, right? Where that Facebook breach happened? Well, that happened earlier again, and no one's talking about it. They've been breached again, and you're still not hearing anything being discussed on mainstream media. I'm going to go over this briefly, and then we're going to talk about Venezuela's social credit score. And this is an article from the Free Thought Project by Matt Argerist. It says Facebook bug exposed millions of users' private photos. You guys can go to that article, and it'll show you how you can see if you're affected. But according to Facebook, the bug allowed third-party access to your photos for 12 days between September 13th and September 25th of this year. According to their release, the bug affected millions of users. Currently, we believe this may have affected up to 6.8 million users and up to 1,500 apps built by 876 developers. That's right. And News Today, I have not gotten around to posting it. News Today is coming out about how Facebook is selling your information in places like Spotify, Netflix, Hulu, and all of these other places, right? So that they can, again, feed you more ads, give you more information, try to put you in this technological bubble, this echo chamber of where all you see and hear is yourself. It's crazy. It's crazy, and this is the technocracy, but let me go ahead and get into this, okay? Because I think this is, again, telling of just how crazy and how fast things are. So not only is it bad enough that we have congressmen saying that they would like to regulate the content of speech, we have Facebook saying, hey, we're going to predict your location, we're trying to play God. Now, in places like Venezuela, they have joined the social credit score system. Canada has one as well. They call it the carrot reward system. We don't talk about it as much. Everywhere is adopting this system, the social credit score system. We talk, You guys can look this up. I thought it was going to be called the Citizen Threat Ranking, but all of this stuff is important. You see what we're doing now, from joining the Facebook groups to even pointing out these types of things like the Yellow Vest protests. They are dallying up whether or not you are a threat. Facebook already is working on something called the user reputation score. You guys can go back and listen to that. I did a report on it to highlight it, to get this stuff on record. And again, now we hear that Venezuela is joining the Social Credit Score Club. This is an article by James Corbett of Activist Post. We put this up December 17th. It says, so you're familiar with China's social credit score system by now, right? You know, the ones that we've been talking about for years, the ones that we've had a sneak preview of 8 years ago in You Are Being Gamed, the one that's being trial ballooned at home via carrot rewards and other motivational point systems. Yeah, I dare say you do, because even if for some unfathomable reason you haven't read, watched, or listened to anything I've ever done in relation to the Chinese social credit score system, then you're probably a TV-addled fluoride head who's learned all about it from mainstream media repeaters. But for those 2 or 3 people who have been living underneath a rock for the past 2 years and somehow managed to avoid the story entirely, here it is in a nutshell. The Chinese government is planning to assign a, quote, social credit score to every single citizen by the year 2020. The score is a measure of your behavior when you follow the rules, obey Communist Party dictates, spread government-approved propaganda on social media, and generally behave like a, quote, good citizen. Your score will go up. Conversely, if you break the rules or otherwise act like a, quote, bad citizen, your score will go down. And we'll go into this stuff, later on too, because I have some stuff regarding the most recent revelations in China. You know, we pay attention to all the Christian things that are happening, from them destroying churches and burning buildings and things like that. The Christians are fighting back, and this is a good thing. And we're seeing this. We're seeing this kind of rebellion, but this is what they would consider bad behavior because they're not adhering to the system. And I think that's a beautiful thing. But continuing on, it says, so what constitutes a bad citizen? Well, if I was doing my work in China, you could bet your bottom yuan that visiting CorbettReport.com would be on the list of no-nos that would get your score docked. Just then, what's the consequence if your score sinks too low? It tells you all that. Okay, well, this article is lame and doesn't really get into that. But my point is this. Thanks for the hype, EJ. Sorry I let you guys down. Venezuela is getting involved in the social credit score system, and this isn't really a good thing because we're seeing this become adapted here. What happens whenever I'm literally put into a position to where I am no longer able to provide you guys information because I've been deemed a bad citizen? So I'm going to play for you guys this clip real quick of why China's social credit score scheme will create a more corrupt, not better citizenry. And they're just going to give you a quick introduction into the social credit score system, and we're going to take a quick break right after that.
Is underway to bust low-level offenders, jaywalkers. Cameras record them going through intersections, zero in on their face, and then publicly shame them on nearby video screens. It's all part of the Chinese government's new social credit system, where people's daily behavior is monitored and rated. I think it's a good thing, this woman said. It makes people more honest. But this social credit rating goes far beyond a traditional credit score, which is based on your finances. China's version factors in everything from jaywalking to smoking on trains to buying too many video games.
Keep that in mind.
If your score gets too low, you can be banned from buying plane tickets, renting a house, or getting a loan. Nearly 15 million people have already been prevented from traveling. Journalist Leo...
Keep that in mind. Finances. I'm going to play for you guys one more clip about how in California, Stockton, California, they are adopting a basic income program, a universal basic income program. Finances in relation to the social credit score system. What happens when, again, you are no longer able to sign up for these government assistance programs or even basically live, barter, trade, mark of the beast style system. What happens whenever your score gets too low and you're no longer able to apply for aid, have a job, do all of these types of things? This is very important. But this clip I'm going to play for you guys now is how in Stockton, California, they are trying universal basic income.
I don't think enough is ever enough out here.
But at least it's something, right? Mail carriers in Stockton delivering more than Christmas cards this time of year. They're handing out financial relief from the city. The free money is part of a basic income pilot program. Stockton is the first city in the country to launch it.
CBS 13's Carlos Correa in downtown Stockton to show us how it will work.
This is the letter 1,200 people will be receiving over the next few days. It does not mean people will automatically receive the money, but it makes them closer to potentially being selected. Stockton dad Jose Miranda works hard to save his money, but setting aside a small portion of his paycheck every other week can be a challenge. He says his expenses just keep piling up.
Kids, you know, my kids, spend money on kids the most, I think. Well, and just rent, in particular, rent, food, phone.
Miranda lives in a neighborhood where the median income is at or below $46,000. It's one of the areas the Stockton Economic Empowerment Demonstration Program, or SEED, is sending letters to people who may be eligible to get $500 a month, no strings attached.
I think for the people that really need it, you know, it'd be good for them. Like a lot of people say, you know, groceries, rent, you know, car payment, whatever.
A team of independent researchers will pick 100 people to receive the money. The purpose is to study how an extra $500 a month impacts people's health and stress level, and they want to know if people feel financially secure.
Around this country, but especially in communities like Stockton, people are working incredibly hard and falling further and further behind.
The researchers will also have a comparison group as part of the program. It consists of 200 additional people who will get a $20 gift card for filling out surveys and provide feedback.
People who are working incredibly hard are smart, and they don't have money because they're not good with money. They don't have money because jobs, etc., aren't paying enough for folks to live and survive. Something as small as $500 a month can make a world of difference.
People who receive a letter from SEED have until December 23rd to respond. The 100 people selected to receive the $500 a month will be notified by mid-January. The money will start arriving to those individuals soon after that.
Carlos, thanks. This story has us wondering what other places have had monthly stipend programs for residents. Well, you might be surprised. Some of the programs have already been installed by various organizations and governments in places like Finland, Italy, Uganda, Cambodia, and India. In Finland, a monthly stipend of 560 euros, which is about $640, was given to 2,000 unemployed people between the ages of 25 and 58. In Cambodia, a $5 a month program was earmarked for pregnant women and their children. Another pilot program is in the works and will give 1,000 people in Oakland $1,000 a month for up to 5 years.
This is the socioeconomic reformation. This is the technocracy. I don't want to say this is planned obsolescence, but this whole idea is to get us on government dependence. Now, I want you guys to think about all that stuff that we just went over, the whole lifestyle, everything that we see happening, the globalist awakening, the idea of revolution, everything that we see happening and changing, because we're going to take a quick break, and I want you to marinate on this as we go into break. What would you consider a sustainable lifestyle? We'll be talking about this, weather warfare and geospatial dominance, and more. Bill Gates, millions of climate change death, the weaponization of space, so much more on the other side. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this. my friends, I'm here to talk to you about, that's right, CBD oil. CBD oil can reduce the risk of relapse among alcohol and cocaine addicts, and you know they're trying to flood us with both. According to a 2013 study published in the British Journal of Clinical Pharmacology, CBD was proven to have these benefits: relieving pain and inflammation, having antipsychotic effects, reducing anxiety, helping to fight cancer, relieving nausea, treating seizures, lowering incidences of diabetes, and also promoting cardiovascular health. Realized that in 2014, Purdue Pharma received FDA approval for an opioid drug that claimed to help curb the opioid addiction. This will actually help you curb your usage of opioids as well as your reliance upon them. And remember, guys and gals, stay vigilant. Expose lies and share truth. This is Noise Era, Freedom Faction, out. You know, I look around and I wonder, what is the future? It's like sometimes I think it's because of the movies. You know, I just get like glimpses. I stare off into space and I see like, you know, what it's going to look like in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 30 years, 100 years, whenever I'm dead. They try to show you everything, and it's crazy. And so now we're in this weird position of being the vector point for future and order and all this other crazy stuff, because we have a real chance here to try to, you know, affect what happens in the future. Oh hey, thank you guys for paying attention. Thank you for being here in this next segment. Now, I told you before we go in and break, we were going to be talking about what would you consider a sustainable lifestyle. Now, I asked this question and we didn't really get a lot of answers. We did not get a lot of answers. I asked it, you know, what would you consider a sustainable lifestyle? So for the past 2 years have brought unnatural environmental disasters, and the damage caused by these problems hasn't fully been disclosed. I believe in our time, we're going to have more of these unnatural, man-made environmental disasters that will, in turn, force us to change our lifestyles as a response. The wildfires have left many people homeless in California, just as hundreds of thousands of Puerto Ricans were displaced during the hurricane seasons. And now we're seeing tens of thousands of migrants move to different parts of the world to find an acceptable lifestyle. So I ask you, good people, what you would consider a sustainable lifestyle. And let's just read this one right here. This is by Veggie Mom. Growing your own vegetables and cannabis from seeds, using regenerative methods for increased soil life. Your neighbor using the same methods for fruits and nuts. If you trade often and rotate crops, gardening can be your workout, but I'd prefer some sort of calisthenics to remain active with low stress on the body. Limited exposure to television, only to stay current, quotes. Meditation and yoga throughout the day, and maximum exposure to nature. Live off and tend to the land, to put it plainly. Not everyone wants this, though. That's just what I want. I practice most of it. And this was said by Young Skinny, being able to have a 30-day vacation without having money problems. Fortunately, that's a dream. It's good to have those. This is said by Miladam J. Said, having my own island with my own selected people living there on the island with me, my own small country, population 2,000 people, done. This is said by Flip88. A sustainable lifestyle to me is God. Everything will only get worser. It is written in the Bible. We can't fight the inevitable, so I just seek the truth. In John chapter 14, verse 6, Jesus answered, quote, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Now, wow, that's a whole lot of questions, whole lot of different things. If you guys have any any thoughts on that, go ahead and send them our way. I'd love to have a discussion with you guys about what you think of as a sustainable lifestyle. And I use that word sustainable because that is what they're choosing. This is the nomenclature that they want in relation to Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030. As I said before, we're going to have a whole lot of crazy stuff happen to us to where they condemn our lifestyle. You've heard me talk about it with the eco-fascists, the Antifa foot soldiers of the environmentalist groups that are going to condemn everything you're doing. Now, on top of this, we've had crazy news break out. Okay, if people did not go and check my most recent minicast, Globalist weather modification operations, definitely do so. I'll put the link for that in the description bar below. But in it, I talk about how news came out this week about Russia and China being involved in just that, announcing their own ionospheric manipulation operations. Before we get into this stuff, because the sustainable lifestyle and everything plays a part to it, we're seeing them literally manipulate the environment and then say that we are the problem. I'm going to play for you guys a clip where these people are talking about CERN, or not CERN, HAARP. This is the History Channel telling you about HAARP and how it can actually, cause rain, manipulate the weather. And again, we've gone over this. And if you guys look in the description of our minicast, I put the link for a patent list that goes back all the way into the 1800s on weather modification and weather manipulation. But here is this clip of the History Channel going over HAARP.
No coincidence that the United States began building its own mysterious array of antennas in February 1992. They are located in Gakona, Alaska. The project is called HAARP.
HAARP is the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project, originally a joint effort of the Air Force and Navy in cooperation with a number of academic institutions.
It is today the world's largest radio broadcasting station, but it's not designed to broadcast for human ears. It uses unique patented ability to focus the energy coming out of the antenna field and injects that energy into a spot at the very top of the atmosphere in a region called the ionosphere.
HAARP is comprised of 180 antennas, approximately 72 feet tall, linked together to function as one giant steerable antenna. Steerable because it can aim millions of watts of ELF waves into one tiny patch of the atmosphere.
The amount of energy we're talking about here is 3.6 million watts. To give you an idea of what that is, the largest legal AM radio station in North America is 50,000 watts. HAARP is 72,000 50,000 watt radio stations injecting their entire output into a spot that's about 12 miles across by about 2.5 miles deep by about 90 miles up.
This is where HAARP is pointing. It's an area located roughly 300 miles from Anchorage. The U.S. military says HAARP is merely being used to study the physical and electrical properties and behavior of the ionosphere for both civilian and defense purposes. But another theory has surfaced. The intense energy being beamed into the sky by HAARP is actually heating up the atmosphere, causing weather changes.
HAARP is being used for weather modification. The military's own record proves it. They've admitted it within their own documents, and yet they still deny it to the public.
Dr. Brooks Agnew has researched ELF wave technology for the past 30 years and is convinced HAARP's effect on the ionosphere does alter the weather.
HAARP couldn't affect the jet stream directly, but indirectly it could, because if you push the ionosphere out into space, then the stratosphere just under the ionosphere has to move to fill in that gap. When it moves, it could pull the jet stream with it, thus rerouting it hundreds of miles, changing the way water moves through our atmosphere.
Dr. Agnew has devised a demonstration to show how HAARP could manipulate the atmosphere.
So what we've done is we've got a cloud generator up here. It's an ultrasonic nebulizer. It's going to create real water particles, just like you would find in a cloud. What we're seeing now is we're actually filling this chamber with microscopic water particles. You can see that it's almost completely filled with water vapor. It's beginning to condense a little bit on the sides, just so that you can see the detail. We've got a nice dense fog, just like you were sitting inside a cloud at 50,000 feet.
At the bottom of the cloud chamber, Dr. Agnew has constructed an ELF wave transmitter, a miniature version of HAARP.
We're only using 100 watts. It's perfectly safe.
When Dr. Agnew turns on the ELF wave transmitter and begins shooting ELF waves into the simulated cloud, the cloud begins to move up to the top of the chamber, taking the moisture with it.
If you get down low enough, you can actually see a clear layer
above the antenna, it is actually pushing these water particles up. And that's exactly how HAARP works. What we've done is we've not only pushed the cloud off of the HAARP antenna, but as you can see, our cloud is almost completely gone inside. HAARP does exactly the same thing. It ionizes the particles, pushes them out into space.
Fascinating stuff. Definitely fascinating stuff. I would encourage you guys to check it out. I don't want to play all this here because it's definitely important stuff, and I want you guys to go out there and go do your own research so you're aware of what is actually happening. And the reason I play all of this stuff and go into it is because China and Russia are working together on ionospheric weather manipulations. We put this up December 18th. It's by Activist Post. It says the South China Morning Post on December 17th, 2018 not only, quote, let the cat out of the bag, but opened up a can of worms with regard to militaries wanting to control the ionosphere for decades. For decades, it seems China has been cooperating with other countries' scientists regarding ionospheric manipulation, the latest being with Russia, according to the South China Morning Post. A June 2018 test caused a physical disturbance of 49,000 square miles. However, Russia and China, or at least Russia, has been into ionospheric manipulation since the 1900s. Now, what I want to talk about real quick with you guys is a few of the experiments that went on there, and why this is important, why we see these types of things happening, and what the end goal is. Now, I briefly talked about it whenever the fires took place in California. You know, how directed energy weapons, things like weather manipulation, how they create uninhabitable zones, which then create the effect of migration, where people move to places that are habitable, that have all of this stuff. This is climate change, this is geoengineering, this is weather modification. But to continue on, and I'm reading from a different article now that talks about these experiments that China conducted with Russia. It says a total of 5 experiments were carried out in June. One, on June 7th, caused a physical disturbance over an area as large as about half the size of Britain, 49,000 square miles. The modified zone, looming more than 310 miles over Vasyurlik, which is a small Russian town in Eastern Europe, experienced an electrical spike with 10 times more negatively charged subatomic particles than the surrounding regions. In another experiment, on June 12th, the temperature of thin ionized gas in a high altitude increased more than 100 degrees Celsius, which is 212 degrees Fahrenheit, because of the particle flux. The particles, or the electrons, were pumped into the sky by Sura, which is an atmospheric heating facility in Vasyurlik built by the former Soviet Union during the Cold War. The Sura base fired up an array of high-powered antennas and injected a large amount of microwaves into the high atmosphere. The peak power of the high-frequency radio waves reached 260 megawatts. That's enough to light up a small city. Zhanghe-1, which is a Chinese electromagnetic surveillance satellite, collected the data from orbit with cutting-edge sensors. The pumping and the flyby required price coordination to achieve maximum effective measurement. When Zhanghe approached the target zone, for instance, the sensors would switch to burst mode and the analysis samples every half second, much faster than usual, to increase the data resolution. The results were satisfactory. The research team reported in a paper published in the latest issue of China Journal Earth and Planetary Physics. What they're basically saying is they can do this. They can manipulate. They can heat things up. They can put electricity in the air. They can do all kinds of different things. Now, to put a quick pin in this, or at least to talk about this type of stuff real quick, with the California fires, right, you had a lot of people saying prior to the fires that took place there was heavy spraying, whether it's gasoline, whether or not it's aluminum, barium, strontium, and now we know calcium carbonate, or calcium carbonate. I don't know, we'll get into this here shortly. There are more chemicals being sprayed in our air, and now, because we're messing with frequencies, we're messing with lasers, we're messing with chemicals, all of this stuff pollutes the air. 2019 is going to be the year of chemtrails. Now, I go over this more in depth in our most recent minicast. I would definitely suggest you guys to check it out, Globalist Weather Modification Operations, because it's important. But it's important we go over this. It's really important that we talk about this, because what we're slowly starting to see is just that, the weaponization of space, the Space Force, as Donald Trump has said. China said Wednesday that it opposed the weaponization of space as it criticized U.S. President Donald Trump's orders to create a new command center for the controlling military space operations. This was put up by the Drudge Report feed December 19th. It says China is warning the U.S. against weaponizing space. Quote, China has consistently proposed the peaceful usage of space and opposes the weaponization of space and a space arms race, said the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Hua Xiangyang at a press briefing. Quote, we oppose even further turning space into the new battleground, she added. On Tuesday, Trump ordered the creation of Space Command, a new organizational structure within the Pentagon that will have overall control of military space operations. And you can't make this stuff up. Again, people aren't paying attention to what's happening because of just that, because it was Donald Trump announcing the Space Force. Right here, Trump orders Pentagon to create U.S. Space Command. This is by by sign of the Times. We put this up December 19th. It says U.S. President Donald Trump has ordered the establishment of a space command that will oversee the country's military operations in space. He signed the one-page memorandum on December 18th, directing the Department of Defense to create the new command to oversee and organize space operations, accelerate technological advances, and find more effective ways to defend U.S. assets in space, including satellites. The move comes amid growing concerns that China and Russia are working on ways to dispute, disable, or even destroy satellites on which U.S. forces rely for navigation, communication, and surveillance. The new command is separate from Trump's goal to create an independent space force, but could be a step in that direction. Speaking at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, Vice President Mike Pence said, quote, a new era of American national security in space begins today. Space Command will integrate space capabilities across all branches of the military. What we are beginning to talk about, my good friends, is just that. Weather warfare and geospatial dominance. It is no longer conspiracy. It's now a fact. You see, Donald Trump building the Space Force. It's going to happen. Okay. And so now, because all these resources and everything is going to be online, right? How does this tie into a sustainable lifestyle where these people are trying to have, as I said before, geospatial dominance? They want to literally have a base in the sky that watches what goes on here on Earth. I remember writing an article for AWD News about it, you know, the idea that they were going to create an Elysium world where we were basically regular people here upon the planet, and, you know, the elites, the technocrats, they would be on this off-world reality. And this is all, you know, really, it sounds wild, but for long-time listeners, you guys get what I'm talking about. New listeners, you're like, whoa, what is this guy saying, man? He's crazy. And the only way that I can talk about it is just that, is by going over the blanket terms, you know, with weather warfare. They want to, and we see this happening now, as I said before, in relation to the sustainable lifestyle. They're intentionally creating these unnatural environmental disasters so that they can come through and say, well, the solution is you need to move to inland America. You need to migrate to inland America. And inland America, which is not facing any of these types of things, is saying no. This is why they want billions of people in Europe, in America. Notice that China is not taking any of these people. Okay, keep that in mind, because they don't want to overload things. This is a communist government within China. They don't want to have all these migrants coming in here destabilizing things, because that's exactly what's happening right now. Okay, so how does weather warfare and geospatial dominance tie into the sustainable lifestyle? Well, because we are going to be all living in these areas together, your lifestyle, what you do is going to impact not only your life, but your neighbor's life, as we went over with one of the comments. And then it's also going to affect your child's life, if you have children, because you see them pushing this anti-human, anti-life agenda. You know, I'll say this, let me say this, and then, you know, we'll get into this article. You know, this is why you see these people taking this stance as if they are the saviors. But even in being the saviors, they're still condemning us and saying that we are the problems. Check this out. Bill Gates predicted millions of deaths from climate change before the century's end. So they have the ability to literally manipulate the weather and do all kinds of sorting, all kinds of stuff like this. What they're telling you is just that the culling of the population. They want to keep it maintained. You know, they're not gonna. This is again why you hear them talking about sustainable development. They're in the socioeconomic reformation. They are changing everything. Not everybody can have, you know, a souped up Mustang. Not everybody can have a sweet bike. Not everybody can have a 3-story house. Not everybody can have this. I'm sure we'll talk about more of this as we move forward into the future of 2019. The whole lifestyle changes, the socioeconomic reformation, and more, because this is all going to play into it. It's not just about the environmental disasters, whether or not we're seeing a ricochet effect or a snapback effect from the globe. There's so many different things that get into this, but the reason I bring up this article about Bill Gates talking about or predicting deaths, millions of deaths, and I go over this in the minicast, is because of that. They're predicting this. They're showing you this. They're saying if you don't believe in climate change, if you don't believe what's going on, you're a part of the problem. You see, we're not dying fast enough. This is a good way for me to pivot to try to wrap up this segment. We're not dying fast enough. Bill Gates and all these other people who are involved in these kinds of globalist operations where they're saying they're here to help us, right? They're doing all kinds of different things to manipulate us, to put us in a state of subservience, control us, releasing the drugs, releasing the bugs, the chemtrails, and everything else. I didn't get into it in the segment because I've been talking about it, raising the alarm so much, but just that. Speaking of Bill Gates even more, this guy is trying to administer vaccines through the air. He's teaming up with Harvard scientists to bring you just that. More chemtrails, calcium carbonate. That's what they want. They want to sterilize you. They want to keep you subservient. They want to keep you under their thumb. So while we're here talking about vaccines, Bill Gates, and diseases, and all this other stuff, because this is, again, part of the sustainable lifestyle, the global health security agenda is what they call it, to where they can get everybody on the same page, administer the universal vaccine. You see, I think this is important to also get on the record. For people that don't know, Lou Ferrigno, the Incredible Hulk, the star of the Incredible Hulk, he got a bad reaction. He got a bad batch of vaccines. They say he said they administered it wrong, you know, and I think that's an admirable thing to say. But the same way that we're looking at New York State Senator Jose Peralta dying of a flu vaccine, we now have another person, another notable figure, who is also a victim of this type of stuff, because these things are lethal. These are healthy people who are literally escaping death because of whatever they are injecting in them. I'm going to play for you guys a video after this. 40% of Americans are rejecting the flu vaccine because they're aware of this. This is in violation of the Nuremberg trials. And you got to think, like, I haven't gotten around to it, to, you know, making my own version about how the Nazis have infiltrated America, you know, how the Russians got the scientists, or how the Russians got the equipment and we got the scientists, and the remaining few fled to Antarctica. But they are conducting massive experiments on us. You know, look. All right, look. If we're aware of things like the ELF towers, 5G, and things like that, it's able to manipulate the weather. What do you think it's able to do to your body? You're over 60% water, and they're shooting lasers and frequencies and vibrations all over the place. What do you think that's doing to you? And this is just the silent weapons for quiet wars. This is a part of it. The vaccines, like I said before, we're not dying fast enough. So Bill Gates is like, well, let me team up with some Harvard scientists and we'll start spraying some chemtrails in the sky. I'm getting hysterical. And let me play for you guys this clip, and then we'll get into the 40% of Americans who are rejecting the flu shot. Mishap involving a pneumonia vaccine. 67. He was hospitalized because they said they administered it poorly to him. right? But they needed to be careful when they were getting shots. Went in for pneumonia shot and landed up here with fluid in my bicep. Crazy stuff, man. Crazy stuff. And it's not, unless we call for, I'm not even going to call for vaccine safety. I'm not even going to say inject your body with this type of stuff. I talked about this with Christy Scarborough of Corrupt Vaccines and her attorney, T. Matthew Phillips. We need to start talking about what bad reactions are happening with SB 277, the mandating vaccines for children. Every time they are injecting these things in someone, be it a child, Lou Ferrigno, Jose Peralta, you name it, a teacher, right? That is some kind of experiment, some kind of biological experiment that they can just run tests on. And you have to understand, the CDC is not going to tell you about, they're not going to tell you about how many people are dying, how many people are having adverse reactions. They're going to dumb it down, but they're going to report it in their private system. You have to understand, they publicly have to disclose certain things. They dial it back for their private sector. And on top of that, who's funding the research? All of this stuff is crazy to me. And so this is why when I'm looking at again, I'll say this real quick because this was a development that happened. I didn't get around to posting it this week, but Pinterest removed Green Med Info from their platform because they were promoting all natural health, peer-reviewed studies, things that we talk about here that you can download and you can look up yourself. Like there's I even remember putting this up it might have been earlier this week or sometime last week. The fact that there's a proof, or there's more evidence coming out of how people between MMR vaccines and autism, and how it is actually the relation shows that it's actually targeting African Americans specifically. So if you're black, we're going to be you're twice as much affected by this type of stuff. Right here, Collective Evolution said it from Children's Health Defense. They put this up December 14th. A statistically strong relationship has been found between the MMR vaccine and autism. Let's check this out. This is by the Daily Sheeple from Natural Blaze. They say the CDC finally admits what anti-vaxxers are saying about the MMR vaccine. Despite 2 MMR jabs, the boy gets the worst case of measles that the doctors have ever seen. And the last clip that I'm going to play, in the last part of this slide post, is of Congressman Mark Green claiming that vaccines cause autism. He's challenging the CDC's data. You see, I'll play this and then we'll get into how 40% of Americans are rejecting the vaccines.
I have committed people in my community of Montgomery County to stand on the CDC's desk and get the real data on vaccines, because there is some concern that the rise in autism is a result of the preservatives that are in our vaccines. So as a physician, I can make that argument, and I can look at academics and make the argument against CDC if they really want to engage me on it. But it appears that some of that data has been honestly being fraudulently managed. So we've got to go up there and stand against that and make sure we get that fixed, that issue addressed. I say this about autism. I have committed to people in my community, Montgomery County, to.
And as you guys are aware, clearly I do not trust the political system, but if we see any kind of developments with this, we will for sure inform you. And right here, we are going to be playing the clip of how 40% of Americans are rejecting the flu shot. Boom.
In HealthWorks, here's a question for you. Have you gotten your flu shot? If the answer is no, and I'm not going to get it, well, you're not alone. A new study finds more than 40% of Americans have not been vaccinated, and in fact, don't plan on getting vaccinated. Now, this is despite the warnings, the potential dangers, and last year's record number of flu-related deaths. The survey done by the National Opinion Research Center at the University of Chicago. Now, people under the age of 45 were the least likely to report being vaccinated. Here are the top 3 reasons why people don't want the shot. They worry about the side effects. Some think the side effects are worse than the flu. Usually it's just a sore arm. No, that's a myth. 31% say they're going to get the flu from the flu shot. No, the flu vaccine is inactive. It cannot cause the infection. if you do get sick after getting the vaccine, that's just coincidence. And 31% say it doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work all the time, but if you get the flu shot, you are 60% less likely to need treatment for the flu, so it might lessen the severity. Last year's flu season, keep in mind, was particularly severe. There was a record-breaking 900,000 hospitalizations, and more than 80,000 people died. Now, many of them were adults older than 65, but also 180 children died from the flu last year. It is not too late. Last year really peaked January, February, went into March. So if you get your flu shot now, it'll kick in full effect in about 2 weeks, and you'll be protected throughout the season. That's how it works. I'm Dina Santafanti.
Thank you, Dina. I'm not going to be getting my flu shot. You know what I will be doing? Getting a healthy dosage of vitamin D. That's right, taking care of my body, not polluting myself. Who would have thought that that could be the thing to do? Who would have thought that that could be a solution, right? Don't go get a flu shot, actually take care of your body. You know, nobody actually talks about why our immune systems are weakening. No one ever talks about why we're not promoting any healthy lifestyles. Nope, just trust the CDC, trust the experts, get your vaccines. Don't worry about little Jimmy having these kind of adverse reactions. But if you do, here is the vaccine injury number, so if you guys are going to go ahead and take care of that, you can. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about the minds of the reprobates. That's right. Australian Cardinal George Pell convicted, child sex abuse investigations, so much more. I'll say this, and then we're going to take this break. The kid Desmond is amazing. You know, he might be the next David Hogg, where we're not able to say his name or anything like that. I'm getting strikes and getting all kinds of heat for pointing out the fact that I don't think an 11-year-old should be dancing around in a topless bar being handed money by grown men. Sorry, I guess I don't think that way. But we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about this and more. You know, apparently they're saying that boys can have periods. Did you guys know that? I didn't know that. I went my whole life not having a period, and apparently now they can. We're going to be talking about this and more on the other side. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. This is Freedom Faction on Factions of Freedom. We'll be right back right after this. Citation. That's right. We're back. I'm all out of bubble gum. I'm all out of bubble gum. I'm kicking some tail, taking some names, and I'm chewing bubble gum. But I'm all out of bubble gum. Thank you guys for tuning into this segment of Factions of Freedom, the final segment, the minds of the reprobate. Now, before I go into this, I think it's important. What is the reprobate mind? Now, because we have new listeners every day, I started out doing all this, like I said, looking at prophecy, coming from a Christian ethos, a Christian Western ethos, and then kind of evolving. But as I see myself growing, I'm kind of coming full circle back to my roots. It's crazy. But when I talk about the reprobate mind, what I'm talking about is just that, the fact that these people are aware of the wickedness that they're committing, and they have no problem perpetuating it. They have no problem engaging in it, in the debauchery, in the wickedness, and just the sickness of it, really. And I say this because I worry. This comes from a place of love. I really do worry about what is happening to the coming generations and many more. And I'm going to read you guys real quick, just a quick excerpt from a website I found earlier. I didn't have time to source it, of what the reprobate mind is, and I'm going to be playing for you this kid, Desmond. Desmond is amazing. In a sodomite club in Brooklyn, New York, dancing as you see people handing him money. But what is the reprobate mind? The phrase reprobate mind is found in Romans chapter 1, verse 28. It says, in reference to those whom God has rejected as godless and wicked. It's the Greek word translated reprobate in the New Testament is adikomos, which literally means unapproved. That is, rejected by implication, worthless, literally or morally. Just think about that, worthless. Paul describes two men named Janus and Jambres as those who, quote, resist the truth, men of corrupt minds, reprobate concerning the faith. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 8. Here is the reprobation in regarding the resistance to the truth because of the corrupt minds. In Titus, Paul also refers to those whose works are reprobate. Quote, they profess that they know God, but in works they deny him, being abominable and disobedient, and unto every good work reprobate. Titus chapter 1, verse 16. Therefore, the reprobate mind is one that is corrupt and worthless. Think about that. As we can see in the verses above, people who are classified as having a reprobate mind, having some knowledge of God, and perhaps know of his commandments. However, they live impure lives and have very little desire to please God. Those who have reprobate minds live corrupt and selfish lives. Sin is justifiable and acceptable to them. The reprobates are those whom God has rejected and has left to their own devices. Now think about that. They know what they're doing. They are fully conscious of what they are doing. I say these are people who are consciously aware of the evil, of the wickedness that they're doing. This is why they had to get God out of schools, Christianity out of schools. This is why they had to call you a racist, a bigot, a homophobe, a Bible thumper, and all kinds of other demeaning things to say you don't believe in that stuff, that old book, right? It's been rewritten and rewritten and rewritten. I talked about this at the start of the show. This order that we see taking place. There's a natural order to things. There's law and order. There's natural law. There's God's law. There's the world order, and so much more. The time frame that we are in, and you've seen me talk about this in relation to a lot of this stuff, the paradigm shift, the age of Aquarius, the sacred masculine and the divine feminine, all of these things, I'm aware of them. What we're seeing right here with all of this, though, is the sexualization of children, the hypersexualization of children. Let's keep it 1,000. This is why Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed, because people were of the reprobate mind. They knew of God's tenets and they did not want to keep them. They wanted to be fleshly. They wanted to be earthly. They wanted to be in the world, not of it. You see, I sometimes get upset at myself because I pay attention to so much that's going on, right? The information and the data, not the knowledge and the wisdom. We pay attention to all this stuff, trying to go back and forth with people, trying to be politically correct when we know these are the works of the devil. Who is the leader of the Illuminati? It's Lucifer. We are literally going up against wickedness. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and rulers in high places. This is wickedness. And it's incremental. And if they get these kids now, right, they're saying Desmond, Desmond is amazing. Putting this 11-year-old boy in a gay bar, dancing around, no arrests. And you got to point, again, let's look at this, okay? Let's really look at this. We're not putting two together. You have thousands of arrests of pedophiles at Disneyland, schools, libraries, cafes, all over the place, right? But we're supposed to be tolerant of this. We're supposed to be we're supposed to be tolerant, not respectful, and I'll get into that shortly. Tolerance versus respect. We were raised on respect. That's why this doesn't make sense to us. They're telling us to be tolerant. These are two different things. What's happening right now is they're trying to use political correctness and all these other what I would consider demonically inspired ideologies to cripple us into accepting wickedness. You see, no one put two and two together that these people who are conducting all these types of things, and I'll play you guys real quick a clip of how in Michigan, they're trying to stop drag queen story time, and it leads into my next point. A lot of these people who are involved in drag queen story time, who are part of the occult underground, who are part of human trafficking, who are part of all the darker elements of this, okay? If people want to express themselves, they're more than able to do so. But whenever you have an organized agenda which pushes rohypnol, which pushes pharmaceuticals, which pushes gender-bending chemicals, hormone treatments, and all these other things, this is literally child abuse to me, okay? So I just read you guys real quick some quotes from the Bible. That's how I was raised. Is that child abuse? Some people would tell you that it actually is. I've heard arguments that teaching children religion is child abuse. So then what is this? Dressing up a child, having them parade around for money. What is that? I would consider that child abuse. I would consider this legitimately child abuse. Shame on the parents. And on top of this, don't even get me started on the chemicals in the water and everything else. Okay. I have apparently again, I'm not woke enough to want or to respect or be tolerant enough of an 11-year-old cross-dressing in a gay bar. But this is where we have reached. How long do you think it is until, they allow these children to say, well, yeah, what happens whenever they start trying to perform sex acts on people? What happens whenever they are literally scrambling and sexualizing the minds of children? Not teaching them about engineering, not teaching them about carpentry, leatherworking, metallurgy, not teaching them anything useful. Nope, teach them how to parade around in the opposite gender's clothes, doing perverted and promiscuous things. This is what they want the next generation to do. The whole idea behind this is to break down society too. Don't even get me started on that. The destabilization that happens. Oh man, we are in this state of political arrogance to intolerance, not respect, to where we're literally letting politics run our life. And I had some time to think about this because I keep, having these back and forth statements in relation to the Satanic Temple, their right to speech and everything else, their right to religion and all this. And I said before that they are allowed to have the First Amendment and everything like this. These laws, we have to understand too that America was some presidents are Freemasons. America was built by Freemasons. America was built by occultists. They put the freedom of religion in there as a ticking time bomb type of clause, so that the occultists would have the ability to basically grow their numbers and grow their ranks, and then come through right after say, hey, freedom of religion, we're practicing what we want, First Amendment, you got to leave us alone. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. You see. So again, because we have a memory and we timeline this type of stuff, we have huge numbers of the LGBTQP movement joining the Satanic Temple, and then a few years later they have things like After School Satan, and then we have what? Just that, the arrests of all the pedophiles and the human traffickers. But as it becomes so overwhelming, they start to normalize it. They say, okay, well, this is obviously some kind of sickness. This is obviously some kind of disease. This is obviously some kind of mental condition, some health condition. They need to attach it to the LGBTQP community. They want to normalize it. This is the mind of the reprobate. Okay, rather than trying to point out, hey, why are people thinking this way? Why is this going on? They're saying this is normal. Don't you know? Haven't you seen two deers having sex? You see, everything that we are seeing right now is a it's not. We're not responsible for it. But this, if we're supposed to be the caretakers of the planet, look at what we've let happen. Now, I'm going to play for you guys this clip of these people in Michigan trying to stop the drag queen story time, and then we're going to get back to trying to finish all this stuff out, talking about the minds of the reprobate and how that ties into the news and everything else that we see happening. You know, again, what is spirit cooking, pedogate, pizzagate, and stopping human trafficking? I'll get into this too with these investigations in the 45 states, but some Pennsylvania priests, and this is how perverted things are, okay? Pennsylvania priests were essentially tagging choir boys with rosaries so that other priests would know, hey, this is mine. So when I'm talking about this type of stuff, guys, I'm legitimately coming from a place of concern because I see perversion, I see wickedness, and I see domination. I see indoctrination. I see molestation. I see imprinting. I see stuff that just makes my soul scream, these are the people that need to burn in hell. But I digress. Let me play for you guys this clip.
Just, people enjoying a nice story. It's simple.
Tina Tomasic took her young children to story time at the Huntington Woods Library. It was for a new program, and the guest reader, a local drag queen. The story encouraging kids to be who they are.
I think it's important. I think it's for people of all walks of life just to come together and enjoy, a nice time together.
So Tina was a bit surprised when she saw in the Free Press Monday that the program was suddenly under fire.
A very popular program that our citizens like, and we're not going to be bullied by outside hate groups telling us what to do.
City Commissioner Joe Rozelle says drag queen story time has been going on for about a year, but recently the commissioners received vicious emails from an out-of-state group called Mass Resistance, calling the program vile and perverse and demanding it end.
Gender bending, this destruction and attack on the identity of male and female is deeply destructive to children.
That's Arthur Schaefer from California. He says his group plans to protest at the next story time in January, and he says they have found a friend in City Commissioner Allison Iverson, who's opposed to children so young being exposed to drag queens.
What kind of impact that could have on a child who's not really mature enough yet to handle those tough discussions?
There's no evidence that anyone that has attended this event has left, as a drag queen or anything like that. It's completely ridiculous.
Even so, Iverson says she plans to address the issue at Tuesday's City Commission meeting. It's her last one because she's moving to another town. The Mass Resistance folks tell Fox 2 they won't be there, but a standing room only crowd is expected.
The city now looking at additional security both for this commissioners meeting as well as the next drag queen story time.
We don't want to take any chances, both with our young folks, our young residents, and those who may attend our city commission meeting.
A meeting city officials say will not result in drag queen story time coming to an end. In fact, it will probably be more popular than ever.
The program will continue as long as the community supports it and are in favor of it, and so we don't anticipate there being any changes to the program.
In Huntington Woods, Amy Lang, Fox 2 News.
Thank you, Amy. Well, there you have it. Communities are supporting this. There you have it. And we played for you the clips, how in Louisiana, I forget the individual's name. I think it's Dylan something or other, but he's saying, yes, we're grooming your kids. We know what we're doing. We're going to do it anyway, and you can't stop us. You have people who are aware of this thing, gender identity. They're creating. It's crazy. Just the levels of this. They're creating a word, a phrase, and then they're attaching all these things to it. This is going to be a very real issue in the coming future. I've spoken on it, from the bisphenol A in the water, from the atrazine, from all the other things that they have out there, the chemicals, the birth control, all of the things that are gender bending people and changing them to where they would have these types of thoughts. As I said before, hormone blockers, estrogen mimickers, and all this other stuff. This is very real. But what I think, again, is this is not stuff that children should be discussing. This is not stuff that children should be exposed to. This is stuff that that people should come into awareness about. And I don't know. All this stuff is very interpersonal. That's why I kind of don't necessarily like talking about it. But you see, that's why even though in that clip with mass resistance, people who were pointing out what is going on, the community said, well, we're not going to be affected by outside hate groups. We're going to go ahead and continue the program. And that's just the wildness that we're seeing. And another part of the wildness, another part of this kind of crazy, what you would consider sex education, outrage has been sparked as school kids are now taught that boys can have periods too. This is to be inclusive. This is by the Free Thought Project. They put this up December 18th. It says, children as young as 8 are now being taught that, quote, trans boys and men and non-binary people may also have periods. It's part of a new guidance on menstruation and sex education. A Brighton primary school will now begin teaching children as young as 8 that trans boys and men and non-binary people may have periods. The instructions were included in the Taking a Period Positive approach in Brighton and Hove schools, guidelines issued by the local council in early December. Period products are provided for all pupils and students who need them, and this provision is promoted as and known by all. The guidance reads, with express intention of reducing the, quote, stigma and shame related to periods. I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of leave it there. We're gonna talk about the article. I'm not even going to go into detail. If you guys want to look at it, they're teaching kids, boys in the UK, that they can have periods too, and they're teaching them how to use periods. It's crazy shit. It's crazy. It's crazy. This is crazy. We know this is insane. This is crazy. It makes about as much sense as having an 11-year-old boy cross-dressing in a club dancing around for money. Oh, but don't worry. Don't worry. And what's crazy now, you guys might be able to go back and find the other post, but Instagram deleted it. Desmond's mother, who is the manager of Desmond Is Amazing's Instagram account, blocked my account, but before they did that, they made sure to delete the previous post that I talked about where Desmond debuted himself on ABC America. So this is what I'm talking about. I'm wondering, again, let me get into this article. This is by Tim Brown from Freedom Outpost. They put this up December 18th. It says, why is this not criminal? Oh, wait, it is. But as long as the sodomites do it, everything is okay, right? Wrong. Still, after ABC promoted cross-dressing 11-year-old Desmond Naples, a.k.a. Desmond Is Amazing, he unsurprisingly found his way on stage at a sodomite club in Brooklyn, New York. Radio show host Bradley Dean wrote about Desmond just a couple of weeks ago regarding his appearance and acceptance by ABC, a self-proclaimed, quote, family channel that's owned by Disney. This demands the people's full attention. What an exhibition of this abominable lifestyle that the networks are illegally pushing on the airwaves today. In retaliation to the hetero swine, the law-abiding citizens, the sodomites push forward and advocate all their more blatant crimes against nature with the use of America's children. ABC's Good Morning America is daring the justice of God by promoting the 11-year-old trailblazing drag kid, Desmond, as they celebrate how amazing this is with the full approval of them that stand back and play as the accomplice. They're like, good God. And the $3 Bill Gay Club in Brooklyn sold tickets to the club Whoa show on Eventbrite for $15, promising 11-year-old drag kid Desmond Naples, a.k.a. Desmond is amazing, saying that he would headline the event. He's the headliner. Don't you know? These gay guys go to this club and they're like, yo, man, I can't wait to see this 11-year-old. I've been hearing so much about him. What? And when you go do your own research on Desmond and look at the people that are surrounding him, and your heart will melt. These are the minds of the reprobates. This is what is happening in modern day America. So when we talk about this, when we talk about the Catholic Church, when we talk about pedogate, when we talk about human sex trafficking, all this other stuff, when we talk about investigations into child sex abuse by Catholic priests, and how it's spread to 45 U.S. states, that shouldn't be new. You have, like I said, gay dudes in New York, Brooklyn, New York, waiting to see 11-year-olds in clubs. Is it that far off to think that priests, Catholic priests, who see children every day, would not be engaged in this type of behavior? And this is why it's again, the mind of the reprobate. They are fully aware of the natural law. They are fully aware of everything. But our minds are so perverted and so far away from the truth, so far away from the light, so far away from just wholesome decentness, that we have got to find more ways to perverse it in order to be happy. And this is what sin is. This is what the wickedness is. This is the negativity. This is that dark energy. This is why it weighs you down, because you have to keep looking for more wicked stuff to fill that hole. You were given everything you need, but now they're given, oh my God. Let me get into this. Let me get into this stuff right here. This child sex abuse investigation. This is why we talk about this type of stuff. We've had people who are satanic ritual abuse survivors on the show. We've had people who have conducted investigations, who have actually rounded up pedophiles and taken place in some of these operations, and how they have these occult overtones, how they've seen symbols on the wall, sigils on the floor, carved in people. This is an epidemic to me, and that's why I don't understand how we're normalizing it. People can say, let's condemn these pedophiles, but then they want to encourage this because we have to be tolerant. This is some very dangerous stuff. Let me get into this article right here. It's from Your Newswire by Nima Harris. It says investigations into child sex abuse by Catholic priests are spreading across the entire United States. The investigation follows a 2-year probe in Pennsylvania, which revealed hundreds of cases of abuse as well as a massive institutional cover-up. RT reports that a Pennsylvania Attorney General, Joshua Shapiro, told USA Today that officials from up to 45 states have sought his office's assistance in prosecuting alleged misconduct by Catholic priests and alleged cover-ups by the church. In the Keystone State, over 300, quote, predator priests were found to have abused over 1,000 victims in the past 60 years. A grand jury investigation found. Similar investigations are opening up in Georgia, Louisiana, Michigan, Mississippi, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Guam, and Washington, D.C., the District of Criminals. The U.S. Department of Justice is also looking into the Pennsylvania cases, running its own investigation out of Philadelphia. Some of the 1,450 calls have flooded a hotline recently set up for victims not uncovered during the preceding 2-year investigation. Shapiro believes the investigation has just hit the tip of the iceberg, of the very large iceberg. Quote, I think we're probably in a 3rd or 4th inning, meaning that we still have a good ways to go, and there's a lot more horrors to unearth. And this is what I was talking about before. Some of these priests, if you guys go look at this information and get it out there to just explain the depravity that we are undergoing, some of these priests put rosaries to mark them, to tag them. And that is just beyond me. That is just beyond wicked. And we talked about this in the previous episode, right? In the last episode, Cardinal George Pell, the 3rd highest ranking individual in the Catholic Church. That guy, he's going to jail. That guy got convicted. And what's even crazier about all that, right? The Australian government, and this is what's so wild, I wish I had the full clip lined up for you guys. They're like, some very important stuff is happening. We can't tell you who it is. We can't tell you what organization is involved. The gag order that they put on the Australian mainstream media from reporting on this, it was crazy. But other countries don't have to abide by those same kind of regulations. So this information was coming out. But this Cardinal George Pell, he got convicted. Several counts of child rape. Let's play this clip for you guys, because this is important. Get this all on record, talking about it, and why this epidemic needs to end.
Thank you so much for being here with us on this very major story. The Cardinal is expected to appeal, but what's next for him as a priest? Has the Vatican even responded yet?
Liz, the Vatican has not responded, saying they respect the Australian sort of suppression order not to comment on this case and not to publicize it. The big question mark is, what does come next for him? Now, he has another trial that's slated to go forward in 2019. It's important to note, Liz, that both with the upcoming trial and this past trial, many observers in Rome, Australia, and even around the globe have said we have to sort of step back and think, is it possible that Cardinal Pell is capable of getting a fair trial at all because of the fact that his name has just become so tied to sexual abuse in Australia and beyond that many onlookers would say it's impossible for him to receive a fair trial because so many jurors would be tainted by that. Now, we don't know, he's still... Thank
you so much for being here with us on this very major...
Tainted by the truth. Tainted by the truth because people have always frowned upon pedophilia. So if this is something that people innately despise, how can this have been with us throughout history? How can we instinctually have this reaction to somebody who diddles children, but now they're telling us that we need to be tolerant of people and children specifically engaging in all this type of behavior? These are the minds of the reprobates. This is the New World Order. These people are trying to control things. This is why we have to stand for something or fall for everything that they are pushing. And that's why I'm going to be with you, good people, until the end, until they decide, or at least try to, get rid of us. This is the Globalist Awakening, Sustainable Lifestyles and Minds of the Reprobates. However, that's all I really have for you guys and gals. I know, I went over a whole lot, and we might have to change saying guys and gals in the coming years. With as many different things that are happening to humanity, it's kind of getting crazy trying to discern these things. But internally, that's what we have to work on. We have to remember that it's how we let these things affect us. I want to be here to lift people up. I want to try to say that we are cleansed, that we are blessed, that we are gifted, that we are set for greater days. We just have to be aware. This is why I constantly harp on telling people to be vigilant, remain vigilant. Pray for clarity in both heart and mind. The future that's being hoisted upon us is crazy. It's crazy. But like I said, I'll be here until we can. And you know what? Looks like we're still kicking tail. But I guess. Pay attention to all the links in the description bar below. Check out the website. We do a lot to try to pack these episodes with information for you good people. I'll put all the links for everything in the description bar below. And remember, guys and gals, stay vigilant, expose lies, and share truth. This is Noisera, Freedom Faction, out.